Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm back again and I'm carrying on my preliminary looks at some of the Edge of Eternity's cards that have come out, and today's card is one that's just been spoiled as I've got home this evening, so I'm jumping online just to record this video very early, and it is what you're here for. Dyadrine, Cynthia's Amalgam, X green and white for 0/1, a legendary artifact creature construct, has trample. And it comes into play with X with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of mana spent to cast it. But this is different. We've had +1/+1 counters, matters, commanders for a while now. They always turned up in green and white, but this one's a little bit different, which I'm quite happy about. The second ability is whenever you attack, you may remove a +1/+1 counter from each of 2 creatures you control. If you do, draw a card and you get a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Now, the key with this one that I've spotted straight away, and I hope you have as well, is you don't have to attack with Dyadrine. You just have to attack. And if you've got a couple of creatures with some +1/+1 counters on them, you can take 2 of them off and draw a card and get a 2/2 colorless robot to help block. Right. Yeah, this is going to be good, I feel. And this deck really is a starting point. There are a couple of other cards in here from Edge of Eternities that have been spoiled as well, so they're coming into this deck. So here we go. Hope you like today's one, and this is what it looks like. So, starting at the beginning, we have 2 Planeswalkers. We have Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants here, because that helps us actually create the 2 +1/+1 counters we need on 2 creatures to then remove them when we attack to get our robot on our card. And it also brings back anything that's died off that's mana value 2 or less. If you can get the -7 off and get the cat tokens with lifelink every turn in our end step, fantastic. But it's the +1 we're really interested in here today. From there, the other Ajani, the Hero of Mentals, is here because, again, does the same thing. Distributes +1/+1 counters, which we like. And we get to put 3 out and distribute them amongst 1, 2 or 3 target creatures. So, you know, it does help entirely get those cards on the go. You know, there might be the other +1, looking at the top 4 cards of our library and going and find a Aurora creature or Planeswalker also comes into play if we're a bit short on permanence. And the -8 for the 100 life, yeah, probably a pipe dream. But the 2 +1s are really good, so we're going with this today. Creatures, well, we've kept very similar to mana base to what we've had before in green and white decks where +1/+1 counters matter. So ever since Pilgrims here, Birds of Paradise, Elvish Mystic, and then for the ramp, those 3. And then we've got Esper Sentinel, so we can get that extra card draw on the go. Goldvein Hydra comes in with a whole load of +1/+1 counters on it, so that helps with Dyadrine. But we get the treasure tokens as well when it snuffs it. So yeah, we'll go with that. More ramp, we'll land more elves. And then Anafenza, Kintree Spirit, plays really good role in this deck to bolster those creatures up so we get the +1/+1 counters for Dyadrine. Bristling Build just chucks them around when we drop in the lands. And Conclave Mentor gets us extra counters on every time we put one in. I like this one as well because when it dies we gain a little bit of life, which helps. Gala Greeters, we have a creature enter, we get a +1/+1 counter, then we get the tapped treasure token, and then we get to have the 2 life, so all good. Luminarch Aspirant just chucks them around at the beginning of combat, so they always give you 1 to help out with your Dyadrine when you attack. And then from Final Fantasy's Commander decks, we have Shelinda, Yvonne, Acolyte. And whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature if its power is less than Shelinda's power. Otherwise, you get to make Shelinda bigger. So you always end up with your +1/+1 counter, getting ready to remove it for Dyadrine. Arwen, Weaver of Hope, is nice. It obviously comes into battle when another creature comes into play. You get to per +1/+1 equal to Arwen's toughness, which hopefully you've bumped up a little bit by the time you start using it. Evolution Sage is in just for the landfall and the proliferation. Evolution Witness gets us our creatures back or other permanents back when they die, when we put some +1/+1 counters on them. Good Fortune Unicorn, another creature enters under your control, +1/+1 counter on that creature. And Cameo the Whispered Hopes helps us get those extra counters as well. Kodama of the West Tree lets us go and find some of our basic land cards that we need when we deal damage with a modified creature, because it also gives all our modified creatures trample, so a little bit difficult sometimes because we are taking the +1/+1s off, but if you've got a couple of creatures with 2 on them, taking 1 of each off and still leaving 1 on each and getting the damage through, not the worst plan. Kutzil Malmut Exemplar is always here. Stops everyone casting spells during our turn, and whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal damage, each with power greater than its base power deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Mossborn Hydra, just a no-brainer nowadays. Landfall +1/+1 counters get doubled. We love it. And then one of the new cards that's coming in with the Eon of Eternity's Commander decks is Patrolling Peacemaker. It comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And the best bit is whenever an opponent commits a crime, we get to proliferate. Yeah, I think you're going to see this in a lot of decks going forward. Not just for me, but from a lot of other content creators as well. Leona, Autumn Sovereign, just chucks around the +1/+1 counter as long as we've got creatures with 3 different powers. And then Chalet, Voice of Plenty, another way, giving ourselves hexproof and Planeswalkers and all other creatures hexproof. And then if we've got 6 spare mana kicking around at some stage, chucking a load of +1/+1 counters around really helps. MSV Green stays in from the clue set because who doesn't like voting? Probably people are not going to do that often for the security votes because they know what's happening. But, you know, that means if you've got to vote on something, and if you end up with a load of treasures, you end up with a load of treasures. You're not going to complain. Verdus Gilhulk's in just to distribute all those +1/+1 counters. And then Arwen, Aragon and Arwen Wed, enters +1/+1 counter on each other creature we control. We gain 1 life. And when it attacks, so yeah, happy with that one. Finally, because I do like backup and I like the excuse to play Conclave Siege Captain whenever I can, it's here today for the whole backup abilities. From there, a few sorceries, they're all land ramp, Farseek, Nature's Law 3 visits. And then we have a little bit of target removal or condemn and path to exile. Inspiring calls here just so we get some more card draw on the go with our +1/+1 counters and then give them indestructible if we're a bit worried about everything dying at instant speed. And because I wanted it in, a Chroma's Will makes an appearance just to give us that alpha strike eventually, hopefully with all our big creatures that have been +1/+1 upped. From there, we have some more ramp with Mox Tantalite, Soul Talisman. The boots are here to protect Dyadrine a little bit if we need to attack the turn it comes into play. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Emerald Medallion to cut the cost of the spells down. Also helps with Dyadrine because you have this in play, you're going to always end up with at least 1 +1/+1 counter on them. Ozolith, the Shattered Spires in as well to help us get those extra counters and then basically give us an extra one every time we need it if we need to. Pearl Medallion to cut the cost down again. And Thunderous Velocipede is also in. I still like this bit of, this vehicle from Ether Drift. And it is still good fun because it does chuck around a lot of +1/+1 counters, even we get small creatures coming in. The Earth Crystal is here as well. Might as well have this in from Final Fantasy to help us get those extra +1/+1 counters. It doubles them, literally. And then the Great Henge. It wouldn't be the green-white deck that cares about +1/+1 counters without it, and you all know what it does. Then we have the enchantments. Hardened Scales is in, obviously, for every reason you can think of. Builder's Talent I still like. We've still got a lot of non-land, non-creature permanents that come into play, so if we can get this up to level 2 to get that extra +1/+1, sounds good to me. Innkeeper's Talent just chucks around the +1/+1 counters for us and gives all our permanents you control with counters on them ward once we get to level 2. Level 3 is lovely if we can get there, but we just want to get to level 2 as quickly as possible. Sphere Grid is in as well, coming in from Final Fantasy's commander sets to make sure whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. But it also gives all our creatures with +1/+1 counters on it reach and trample, which people tend to forget about quite a lot. Branching Evolution doubles up our counters, and Sylvan's Scavenging is also in to help us get those +1/+1s on the go and eventually hopefully start hitting some raccoons. The other new card coming in from Edge of Eternities is Terra Symbiosis. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you draw that many cards. Do this only once each turn. Fine, I'll draw 2 cards every turn, especially if I've got Hardened Scales in play or Sylvan Scavenging or something else. Tribute to the World Tree's in as well. Might as well have this in to either get the card draw or the counters. So that does give us 2, which really does help with our friend up the top here, Dyadrine. Unbounding Flourishing is also in now. Dyadrine is the only card we have with X in its mana cost. I'm very aware of that. And you're probably wondering why it's here. But I just wanted some way of making sure I can make Dyadrine as big as possible. I've seen a lot more Blasphemous Acts recently and Chain Reaction. So having a creature that's a bit bigger come into play sounds pretty good to me. So hence it's here. It may come out, and as you've probably noticed from the artifact section, I haven't got my usual Elixir of Immortality in, so I may change this for Elixir of Immortality if it doesn't work out, but I'm going to try it out in this deck just for the laugh factor. Anointed Procession helps us get the extra tokens when we make our robots. Felidar Retreat gives us a way of doing landfall and chucking around some +1/+1 counters to help Dyadrine get those robots out. Likewise, Parallel Lives here for the extra robots and few treasures we can make. But Cathar's Crusade is key in this deck. Now, I could have changed this and played one of the tutors, but I was trying to keep the bracket level down a little bit. You've got to remember, you take your 2 counters off something with Dyadrine, with this in play. You get to draw your card, you get a robot. A robot enters, those counters go straight back. Yeah. Seems like there's probably an infinite combo somehow, somewhere that I haven't thought of yet that works with this, but at the moment we're going to go with this. Like I say, these are all the decks I'm doing from EOE at the moment are also like starting decks, so I will probably come back to some of these in the future and update, or just make a note in the video. So check the video description down below to see if there's been an update to this deck as you watch this video. Doubling Season, also here for the extra +1/+1 counters and token generation. Valkyrie's Call I still like, it's here. Means that all our creatures, that when they die, they come back to a battlefield under our control with a +1/+1 counter on them, and they're angels, so that's nice. And of course, Virtue of Loyalty, we'll have a knight, and then we'll get a load of +1/+1 counters on top our creatures in each of our insteps. Lands, well, it's just your traditional green-white mana base all the way through the deck. Nothing particularly fancy here. We have got Reliquary Tower, we have got Temple of the False God to help us get Dyadrine up to a reasonable level, and Gavany Township, because there's another way of spending 4 mana and making sure you've got the +1/+1 counters to activate Dyadrine when you attack. And that's it. That is my take on Dyadrine for today. Is it going to change much? Probably not, because there is like a core set of cards you need for a +1/+1 counters deck. If I can think of something funky to do with Cathar's Crusade, I'll probably update the deck to do that. But at the moment, this is where we stand, and that's how I'm going to play it when these cards come out. So let me know in the comments down below if you think there's anything I've missed out. Please hit the subscribe button if you can. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Just help me out with the YouTube algorithm. I'd really appreciate it. But for now, thanks for watching. Take care. And I'll be back tomorrow with another one from EOE. So see you later. Have a good one. Bye.